1000 lobby. Sisters. Tammy finally shows up at Amy's wedding amidst ongoing feud. The morning air was thick with anticipation, the kind that clings to every breath and hums beneath every whispered conversation. The small countryside venue, decorated with soft blush roses and twinkling lights, looked like something out of a dream. Guests arrived in clusters, laughter mingling with quiet speculation. Everyone was asking the same question, even if they didn't say it out loud. Would Tammy show up? Amy stood near the bridal suite window, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted the lace on her dress. She had imagined this day so many times. Perfect, joyful, filled with love. But reality had brought something else along with it. Tension. Her relationship with Tammy had always been complicated. Sisters, best friends, rivals, and sometimes strangers to each other's pain. Over the years, they had faced everything together, weight struggles, health scares, heartbreaks. But lately, something had shifted. The feud. It hadn't started with one big explosion. No, it was quieter than that. A buildup of misunderstandings, harsh words spoken in frustration, and the kind of silence that hurts more than shouting. Amy had tried to reach out. Tammy had pulled away. And now, on the most important day of Amy's life, the absence of her sister felt like a shadow creeping across the sunshine. "Amy, honey, you ready?" Amanda's voice broke through the stillness as she stepped into the room, arms crossed but eyes soft. Amy nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I think so." Amanda hesitated before asking the question everyone was thinking. "You heard anything from Tammy?" Amy shook her head. Nothing. The word hung heavy in the air. Outside, the ceremony was about to begin. Guests took their seats, the gentle hum of conversation rising and falling like waves. The officiant stood ready. Cameras were set. The music began softly, signaling that it was time. Amy took her place at the start of the aisle, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the melody. She glanced once more toward the entrance. Still no Tammy. A flicker of sadness crossed her face, but she steadied herself. Today wasn't about what was missing, it was about what she had. "Let's go," Amanda whispered. And with that, Amy began her walk down the aisle. Backstage, far from the view of guests, a car engine cut off. Tammy sat inside, staring straight ahead. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles pale. She had been sitting there for 10 minutes, maybe longer. Time felt strange when your mind was racing. She could hear the faint music from the ceremony. She was late. "Of course I am," she muttered under her breath, a mix of bitterness and anxiety curling in her chest. Coming here hadn't been easy. Pride had told her to stay home. Hurt had told her Amy didn't deserve her presence. But something deeper, something stubborn and unbreakable, had pushed her to drive all the way here anyway. Because no matter how messy things got, Amy was still her sister. Tammy closed her eyes briefly. Flashbacks flooded in, childhood laughter, late-night talks, shared struggles, moments when they were all each other had. It wasn't perfect, never had been, but it was real, and maybe that was enough. "All right," she whispered, taking a deep breath. "Let's do this." As Amy reached the altar, she tried to focus on the person waiting for her, on the vows they would soon share, but her eyes kept drifting, just slightly, toward the back. Empty. She swallowed hard. The officiant began speaking, words about love, commitment, and unity. Amy listened, but only half. The other half of her heart was somewhere else, wondering, hoping. Then a murmur rippled through the crowd. At first it was subtle, a few heads turning. A whisper here, a surprised glance there. Amy noticed. Her heart skipped. Slowly, almost afraid to hope, she turned her head. And there, at the very back of the aisle, stood Tammy. She wasn't dressed extravagantly. No grand entrance, no dramatic flair. Just Tammy, standing there in a simple outfit, her expression a mix of nerves and something softer. Something vulnerable. For a moment, everything else faded. The music, the guests, the ceremony. It was just the two of them. Amy's eyes widened, filling with tears almost instantly. She hadn't realized how much she needed this moment until it was right in front of her. Tammy shifted awkwardly, clearly unsure of what to do next. She hadn't planned this far. Showing up had been the hardest part. Everything after that felt uncertain. But then Amy did something unexpected. She smiled. Not a polite smile, not a forced one. A real, genuine, emotional smile that said more than words ever could. You came. Tammy felt something in her chest loosen. Slowly, she took a step forward, then another. Guests moved slightly to make space as she walked down the side, careful not to interrupt the ceremony completely. All eyes were on her, but for once, she didn't care, because Amy was watching, and that was enough. The officiant paused briefly, sensing the significance of the moment, but allowing it to unfold naturally. Amy turned fully now, unable to hide her emotions. Tammy, she whispered, barely audible but unmistakable. Tammy stopped a few feet away. Hey, she said softly. It wasn't much, just one word, but it carried everything. The arguments, the distance, the love that never really went away. Amy let out a small, tearful laugh. You're late? Tammy smirked slightly. Yeah, sounds about right. A ripple of gentle laughter moved through the guests, breaking the tension just enough. For a second, it felt like old times. Amanda, watching from the side, wiped at her eyes. Took her long enough, she muttered, though her voice was thick with emotion. Amy took a step forward, forgetting the ceremony, forgetting everything except the moment in front of her. I didn't think you were coming, she admitted. Tammy looked down briefly, then back up. I almost didn't. Honesty, raw and unfiltered. But, Tammy continued, her voice wavering just slightly, I couldn't miss this, not really. Amy nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm glad you didn't. There was a pause. A choice. And then Amy did what felt natural. She opened her arms. For a split second, Tammy hesitated. Old habits. Old walls. But then she stepped forward. And just like that, the distance between them disappeared. They hugged. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't some movie-style embrace with everything magically fixed. But it was real, tight, emotional, necessary. The kind of hug that says, we've been through a lot, but we're still here. Guests watched quietly, many of them visibly moved. Even the officiant smiled, allowing the moment to breathe. After a few seconds, Amy pulled back, wiping her eyes. You're really here. Tammy nodded. Yeah, I am. The ceremony resumed, but something had changed. The tension was gone. In its place was something softer. Hope. Tammy took a seat near the front, her presence no longer a question mark, but a quiet reassurance. Amy continued the ceremony, her smile brighter now, her heart lighter. When it came time for vows, Amy's voice was steady but emotional. I know life isn't always easy, she said, glancing briefly toward Tammy before returning her gaze forward. And I know relationships take work, not just marriages, but family too. But today, I'm choosing love. Every kind of love. Tammy looked down, swallowing hard. After the ceremony, the celebration began. Music, laughter, dancing. The kind of joy that fills every corner of a room. Tammy stayed mostly to the side at first, watching, taking it all in. Amanda approached her, arms crossed but expression softer than usual. Well, look who finally decided to show up. Tammy rolled her eyes slightly. Don't start. Amanda smirked. I'm not. I'm just glad you're here. Tammy nodded. Yeah, me too. Later, Amy found Tammy near the edge of the dance floor. Why are you hiding? Amy asked, nudging her playfully. I'm not hiding, Tammy replied. I'm observing. Amy laughed. You've always been like that. Yeah, Tammy said, a small smile forming. Guess some things don't change. There was a brief silence. Then Amy spoke, more serious now. "We should talk. Not today, but soon." Tammy nodded. "Yeah, we should." No promises, no grand declarations, just a step. As the night went on, the sisters shared small moments, quiet conversations, brief laughs, the kind of interactions that slowly rebuild something that was never truly gone. The feud wasn't magically fixed, but it wasn't everything anymore. Under the glow of string lights, as music played softly in the background, Amy looked around at her wedding, at her family, her friends, and finally at Tammy. For the first time in a long while, things felt right. Not perfect, but real, and sometimes that's even better. Tammy stood nearby, watching Amy laugh with her new spouse, surrounded by love and warmth. She felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Peace. She had almost missed this, almost let pride and pain keep her away from something that mattered. But she didn't. She came. And in that simple choice, showing up, everything began to change. Not all at once, not completely, but enough. Enough to remind them both that no matter how far they drifted, they could always find their way back.